Good morning. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. This is the Final Four betting preview. I'm your host, Stuckey, and joining me, as always, are the gentlemen from the three-man weave, Matt Cox, Kai McKeon, and Jim Root. We're going to get to both games. We're going to talk with Darren Ravel to get a market report. We'll give out some player props at the end, or maybe our favorite player prop each. A lot to get to. Before we do dive in, I want to remind everyone to download the award-winning Action Network app. If you haven't already, you can find picks, actionable data, and content for today's card and beyond. If you want to start looking into baseball, tons of great content there as well. All right, let's jump in. I guess before we do, the three-man we've coming to us live from New Orleans, the Big Easy. Let's see who looks the most sober. Kai, have you got to look at the rims yet? Any rim gain? Any inside info?
Not quite yet, Stuckey. We're going to get out there today, though. Definitely hang on the rim a little bit, give it some test leverage wise, and we'll let you guys know how it looks in the Superdome. Very big place, by the way. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the last time the Final Four was played there, unders went 3-0 by an average of about 10 points per game. But don't get caught up in small sample sizes. The Final Four was also there in 2003, and overs went 3-0 by an average of about 9 points per game. All right, so let's dive right in. We have two great games with major programs. There's no St. Peter's around. It's a hell of a run for the Peacocks, but now it's all big boys left. Let's start with the first game, 6:09 Eastern, TBS, Villanova, Kansas. I believe the last 2 or 3 times these teams have faced off in the tournament, the winner has gone on to win the national title. And Kansas, oddly enough, the last 2 times that I just mentioned, that the Final Four was in New Orleans at the Superdome, they finished the national title runner-up. Kansas, 4.5 point favorite here, over-under sitting 132, 133 all week. Obviously, the big news here is Justin Moore will not play for Villanova, so that's something that we'll touch on. Let's go to our leadoff hitter, Matty Cox, a.k.a. Matty Carpenter, no batting gloves needed. Matty, what are you seeing here?
I was hoping to take Nova. I reached 5, I think, earlier this week at some shops, but I think there's some steam came back the other way. So I'm with you, Stuckey. I'm looking at a player prop. I'm taking Caleb Daniels over 12.5 points. Feels a little dicey taking it over in a game that I think plays well to the under. So just generally the scoring could be low and deflate all these individual player overs, but he's averaging 11 points per game so far in this tournament. We've seen his usage subtly spike, and he's obviously the guy that has to step in behind Justin Moore. In this matchup against KU's guards, I think he has an advantage, especially if Jay Wright wants to play that inverted guard post up, especially if he can draw the Remy Martin matchup. I think Harris is the better defender, but both are frail, and Daniels will have a pretty sizable strength and length advantage. So I think he has a good matchup here, high usage, good avenue to score. So looking at Daniels over 12.5.
Don't hate it at all. Kai, what are you looking at here?
I like Villanova, and I thought the initial line was a bit of an over-adjustment for the Moore injury. I mean, this is still a really experienced guard group, very poised, coached by one of the best coaches in the country in Jay Wright. So at 4.5 and 5, I was all about Nova. At 4, I still consider them. I think it's going to be a close game. I think you saw Miami really exploit Kansas by using that 5-out offense with Sam Wardenberg on the perimeter. When he was in the game, they actually played Kansas to a stalemate. He got in foul trouble later on. Villanova can do that. They can space Kansas out. They can force McCormick to be a defender on a shooter, unlike Miami, who unfortunately Kansas hid him on Jordan Miller, a non-shooter. Villanova is going to put Dixon out there who can hit threes and really space McCormick out and maybe take him out of this ball game. And we saw Kansas guards kind of ignore David McCormick in the first half in the post against Miami. I can see them doing that again and really not exploiting the mismatch they have inside. I like Villanova here. It's more of a chess match for me. Jay Wright over Bill Self. Just too many points.
Yeah, I tend to agree. By the way, Villanova has to avoid foul trouble here. Also,
yes,
not a deep team, especially without Moore. So that's something to keep an eye on. But look, Kansas was just even without Moore, Kansas was like close 5.5 point favorite against Miami, 7 point favorite against Providence. I think they even came down to 6.5. Does feel a little high. I would agree. Jim, do you agree?
I do. I like Villanova. And the other thing you're mentioning with avoiding foul trouble is tempo. And that plays right into what I'm looking at here. That's the under for the first half and the full game. First half, I like down to 61. Full game, I like down to 132. I think Villanova is going to be desperate to play this in the half court. I think that's going to be massively important for them. And because they have such solid transition defense, we saw it against Houston. I think that's going to play up really well here against Kansas. And so, yeah, I'm liking the under mostly because of tempo, but then you also take out Justin Moore offensively as a late shot clock creator. I think that helps the under a lot as well. So efficiency and tempo, I think, are both huge for the under here.
Yeah, I like Villanova as well. Waiting to see if I can get a 5. If I can, I will play them small and see if I can get a better number live. I just think it's too many points here. I also like, Moore's out for one game, and I think that'll really hurt them maybe more come Monday. But this is a rallying point. One game, everyone else steps up, plays to their peak. You see that a lot when like a star player is out. And then on the other side, additionally, you can have Jay Wright. He's going for his 3rd national title in the past since 2016. He has a week to kind of come up with some maybe new looks that Kansas doesn't have on film. So there's the element of surprise as well. And that leads into my favorite play here, and that's a player prop as well. I'm going to go with Eric Dixon over 8.5 points. I think, look, he's gone over this number 20 out of 37 games this year. And he was limited in a few with an illness and only played like 12, 14 minutes. I think he'll get more minutes here. I think he has some advantages as the roll man, pick and roll, and in the post. Kansas isn't strong defending in both areas. I think Jay Wright is going to feed and work inside the post more often this game. I think he has a really good shot to get the double digits. He's also really good at the line. So if he gets there a couple times, he's very reliable. He's not going to miss a bunch. So I think this prop number is a little too low. I think Dixon's going to have a big game, as he did in the one game Villanova played without Moore this year. That was against Connecticut, in a game they led by by more than 20 with 10 to go. They ended up winning by double digits. I believe Dixon had 24 and 12 in that game. So I think he has a big game here. Give me over 8.5 points, but I also agree on Villanova, and I would lean the under with you as well, Jim. All right, let's move on to our second game. It's the game of the weekend. Everyone cannot wait for Duke Carolina, the first time these two historic teams will ever meet in the NCAA tournament. Pretty hard to believe. Duke 4.5 point favorite here. Over-under sitting at a pretty high 151, but if you go back to both regular season meetings, you would say maybe this total is too low. Back to our leadoff hitter. Matt, what are you seeing here?
I feel like we've regurgitated the same points with Duke the last few times we've talked about them in the tournament, but since the Texas Tech game, I just think the switch has been flipped. We've seen Duke play at probably the highest level of any team in the country when they've been at their best in the regular season. They just went into those kind of dark, questionable lulls. They've snapped out of that now. I think they have the Coach K pressure dynamic figured out, or at least handled, and that's sort of behind them. I look back to that UNC game, last game regular season. You could argue that this game actually is a lower pressure environment because of all the hoopla that was surrounding that game, the anticipation, and then they lost that game. So now it feels like they're playing more with house money. I think these narratives all matter in a game that, the line's pretty sharp at this point in the season, but I still think Duke's too cheap at -4. I think the talent is just superior in a game that'll play with a lot of NBA type of 1v1 matchup exploitation. Duke has more of those on the offensive side of the ball. Jeremy Roach has elevated this team to a new stratosphere with his playmaking at the point. I think he has a big edge against UNC's guards on that end. So a lot of things point to Duke here. I know UNC's been better defensively, but Duke 1.3 points per possession since February 17th. Just a different level on offense.
Yeah, it's an interesting line. I've seen arguments kind of for both sides. If you look back early March, Duke at home, 11.5 point favorite against Carolina. But look, that was Coach K's final home game. A lot of hype, public support in that game. And you got to remember, Carolina won that game by 13. So they get a bump. And then since, they've argued been the best team in the country. But Duke has also been playing really well.
Right.
So, finding where this line should be, very interesting argument. Kai, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, and Duke, 3.5 point favorite at Chapel Hill back in February. And obviously, this is a different UNC team. I've talked about how they've been the most impressive team in the tournament so far. But Duke's been arguably just as good. And that switch that flipped against Texas Tech in the second half, that continued on against Arkansas, was scary. That's Duke's potential. They have the most talent in this game. And frankly, I don't trust UNC's guards. They're erratic. Caleb Love is one of the most erratic players in the country. Sometimes he's a superhero, and sometimes he's awful, and he takes a lot of bad shots. His last 5 games have been literally a roller coaster. He plays well, he plays poorly. He plays well, he plays poorly. I can't trust that in a Final Four setting, especially with a first-year coach in Hubert Davis going against Coach K with the narratives, the destiny that Duke appears to be on. I like Duke here -4.
Jim, do you agree?
I'm gonna cut out the middleman though and go Duke first half -2. I'm with these
Like
guys.
this.
I already like the matchup for Duke. I'm cutting out that late game potential shenanigans with a made three in the back door or something. I think Duke gets ahead early. There's the motivation factor of having been embarrassed at Cameron. And even in that game, Duke won the first half by 2. They ended up losing the second half by 15, but they came out, they put a big run on UNC in the first half. I think they had a 14-0 run in the first half against Carolina in that game, which, if I get half of that, I'll be thrilled in this one. I just, like Matt said, I like the matchups, the way it breaks down for Duke here. So I'll hop in on that first half -2.
Yeah, Jim, 87 and 94 points. That was the point total of the winner in both regular season matchups. Each team won on the other's home court. Is this total too low? Any thoughts there?
I think it's probably a little too low. I was definitely leaning towards the over. I mean, both these teams are willing participants in track meets. Like, I think they're going to play up each other's tempo. The last game of the year went 75 possessions at Cameron. I think we could see something fairly similar here. Both teams are going to probably play pretty loose. I like the under in the other game, but this one I would definitely lean towards the over here.
And Matt, question for you. One of the differences that we saw with Carolina from game 1 to game 2, obviously they went on a big run in the second half offensively, but Leaky Black, one of the best defenders in the country, switched, and he was guarding Banchero in the first matchup, and AJ Griffin went nuts. I think he had 27 points. In the second matchup, Black switched over. He only had 5. Banchero went from 13 to 23. A lot of people looking at player props here. Any insight into, or just, a gut feel, does Carolina do the same thing because it worked last time out? Is it wait and see? Because that's whoever Leaky Black is on, it's going to really impact the player prop market.
Yeah, I think he's a straitjacket. I mean, Hubert Davis should have probably had him on Banchero for the entirety of those 2 matchups. I think he doesn't mess around here. He puts him on Banchero right away. I'm looking at Jeremy Roach, though. Most outstanding player, 20-1. I think he's the key here. He's the one that has the better matchup edge against those guards. You could maybe argue that Manek guarding Griffin is a pretty good edge for Griffin, assuming that's how that lines up. Griffin's confidence starting to resurge after a little bit of a lull in the latter part of conference play. Just an insane shot maker when he's on. So I'd be looking at Banchero unders and maybe Griffin Roach over in this particular game.
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it up. I think the line is about fair. I have a gut feeling this is gonna come down to the wire. Maybe it's just I'm desperate for a really good game, and I'm kind of being idealistic here. But you all hit on some of my points. It's gonna be fast paced. I think there's gonna be a lot of runs. I think the offenses have advantages not only in transition against 2 defenses that are iffy in transition, but also in the half court. So I think that you're going to see runs back and forth, a lot of points. So I think this is a great live trading game. I'm going to look for Carolina live. Maybe if I get like 7 early, and then maybe I'll come back on Duke if Carolina goes on a run. I think it'll be an excellent game, a very entertaining game from start to finish. I can't wait to watch it, but I'll be watching the live market closely. All right, that'll wrap up the 2 Final Four games. We're still going to come back and touch on our favorite player props, but before we do so, let's bring in Mr. Darren Ravel with a market report. Darren, take it away.
Good morning, Stuck. Good morning, men. It is a wonderful day, as it always is, for the Final Four. I come here to kind of give you what all the sports books are looking at, where the bets are, where the money is. And I always like to impart some information so that those people who love to fade the public can at least fade the public. Well, I got some bad news. It is all over the place. There is no consensus on any game, any total today. And so let's just take you through, obviously, Villanova, 4.5 point dogs against Kansas. Caesars, 68% of the money on Villanova. DraftKings, 52%. WinBet, 52% on Villanova. But FanDuel, 67% of the money on Kansas. BetMGM, 73% of the money on the Jayhawks. And PointsBet, 80% of the money on Kansas. Again, if you're going to do the whole fade the public, I don't know what to tell you. There is not consensus here. Maybe that means it's a good line. Then, of course, we have UNC, a 4-point dog against Duke. Remember, they were a 10.5 point dog when they beat them by 13 on March 5th, Coach K's last game in Cameron. And that number, there's a couple books that have money on Duke, including WinBet, Caesars, DraftKings, and FanDuel. And then PointsBet and BetMGM have big money on the Tar Heels. Again, maybe that's a good line. I don't know, but there certainly isn't consensus. There's not even consensus on the total. A lot of people like the total, the over there for Duke UNC of 151, but there's a couple books that have the under. So that's where you are today. I hope to give you information to make your decision a little bit easier. But here on the Final Four, I'm sorry to say, I cannot do that. Guys, back to you.
All right, thanks, Darren. Before we get to our favorite player prop, or props, if you want to mention multiple, quick recap, Matt. Daniels over 12.5 points, Duke -4. Kai, Nova +4.5, and Duke -4. Jim, Nova, Kansas, under 133 first half, under 61.5, and Duke first half -2. I'll go Dixon over 8.5 points. I also like Nova. I'm going to wait to see if I can get a 5, but we'll be on them. And I'm going to look for UNC live and maybe Duke live as well. Going to trade that game in what I think is an ideal live betting matchup. All right, before we get out of here, one final order of business, and that is our favorite player prop. You can mention one or two. If you want to mention one you already did, feel free. Matt, as always, kick us off.
Yeah, I saw Remy Martin for most points in the Final Four at 15-1, I believe, at FanDuel. I think he's the key to this Kansas offense. They're going to have to score a lot of late shot clock situations against Nova's vaunted defense. I think he's a big-time shot maker. He'll have high usage. 15-1, most points in the Final Four, especially as the favorite in the semifinal. I think that's a pretty good bet.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of piggybacking off Matt here. I like Remy Martin, most outstanding player at 12-1. The value is there. Matt and I just went to the Chicago Midwest Regional. He was the best player on the floor against Providence and against Miami. He won the most outstanding player of that regional. Yeah, he comes off the bench, but when he's in the game, man, his usage is sky high, rarely comes out after he gets put in initially, and he makes that offense go, like Matt said. I think it's a fantastic value, especially if you consider other players in the market.
Jim?
I just want to piggyback Kai's there. Remy Martin, a guard. A guard has won this award for 7 straight years. Anthony Davis, the last big man to win the most outstanding player. It's just an easier award for a guard to win. So Matt mentioned Jeremy Roach earlier, 20-1. I think that's a decent wager. I love Stuckey's Eric Dixon prop. I think he is going to score a ton. He's going to have plenty of opportunities. He's going to play a ton of minutes. So I'm with him on the over 8.5. And then right along with these guys, Remy Martin over 11.5 points. He's going to have a ton of ISO situations against Villanova's switching. I think that sets up really well for him to score. So yeah, over 11.5. I think that's -140 at DraftKings. If you can find it over 12.5 at even, I'm okay with that too. Like I think he scores 15 plus here. So like Martin, like Dixon a lot.
Yeah, love Dixon. I'm also going to throw a Baycott under 12.5, 13 rebounds. Look, he's been a rebounding machine of late, but he's had just really good matchups inside against overmatched interiors. And that's not the case here with Mark Williams and the rebounding prowess of Duke. During the regular season, he went under this number, including the postseason, I should say, 20 out of 37 times. But during the 2 meetings with Duke in the regular season, he only had 7 and 5 rebounds, 12 total in the 2 matchups. So I think this number is a tad too high. So give me Baycott under, but my favorite prop by far is that Dixon over points. I think he gets to double digits. Before we get out of here, I guess I'll add one bonus thing. National champion. You had to say it now. We keep changing our answers every week because the teams that we pick are getting bounced quickly. Matt, I assume you're going Duke.
D-double-O-K, Duke.
Kai, you as well?
I'm going Kansas. I think Villanova covers, but I think Kansas gets it done.
Jim?
It's Duke for me. I've just been way too impressed with what they've done recently. So, yep, it's the Blue Devils.
I'm going to say, look, everyone has forgotten about the Duke defensive issues, and their defense hasn't been great this tournament. And we all were talking about coming into the tournament. They haven't faced a top 30 offense yet. Like Texas Tech, Arkansas offenses have issues. I think their defense is going to cost them one of these next 2 games. So I'm going to side with Kai, and I'm going to go Kansas. Barely gets it done against Nova, and then gets it done in the national title game. That'll do it for us. Make sure that you download Big Bets on Campus wherever you listen to podcasts. Big Bets on Campus Live. Of course, we'll be back on Monday. We'll go over the national title game. Appreciate everyone tuning in all year. Good luck with your wagers today. And don't forget to download the award-winning Action Network app if you haven't already. We'll see you on Monday. Cheers.